wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast, actually, we're not exactly totally sure what we're doing, but it's called I'm Triggered by You and We Still Have to Work Together, which is really just, we thought, let's just get really honest about, we've just had not a tiff, but this moment in time where I triggered you, and then you triggered me, and then we were like, fuck, we have to adult up here and sort our shit out. And we thought there's got to be gold in here for you, lovely listener. Perhaps it's, of the broader topic of I'm triggered by you and I still have to show up in my relationship, or I'm triggered by you and I still have to show up and, work with you at any workplace, or, I'm triggered by you, but you're still my best friend.
Yeah. I'm triggered by you and you're the mum I have to see at school and my kid plays with your kid.
Yes, exactly. So we feel like it is a broader topic, but we thought maybe we'd just start with raw open honesty, which is usually where we do our best work, and go from there. Before we dive into it, I would just like to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and on the homepage, sign up to join our tribe with your email address. And once a week, we will send you a newsletter that sums up everything we've put out in the world, all blogs and posts and anything you want to dive a little bit deeper into, so you can click and choose. So sign up to join our tribe on nourishingthemother.com.au.
So this kind of came up, didn't it, today? Because Jules had texted me, and what we tend to do is we get in a flurry of work, so we don't always obviously work at the same time, but whenever we do, we might send a whole bunch of questions or ideas or content, and it kind of
is usually how we work around the kids, because we'll have different pockets of space. So when each of us are in a workflow, we kind of slam out questions in a text message, knowing that person will get to it when they're in their next workflow cycle. Is kind of how that works around kids.
And today it had come through thick and fast.
Sorry.
Jules. And I could feel this sort of anxiety and sense of overwhelm kind of coming up in me. And there was one particular thing that Jules had written, which I also recognised was about the content, but also it was like, oh, fuck. And I thought, no, I'm going to call this out, because in the nature of our relationship is...
Don't be vague. Be specific. We're going to work well with specific. Okay, so we're trying to work on short-term goals, and at the moment we've been smashed with a whole lot of other opportunities that have come our way. So not only have we got our long-term goals, our short-term goals have kind of just got overwhelming in the last week. Really. And still plugging away in my background is I'm really excited to get this sexuality course out to you guys. And
for me, it feels a little bit like pulling teeth.
Yes, and I'm like, no, don't pull teeth, because I know there's genius there. And so I have been, a little bit in the back of my head, niggling, going, I hope Bridget's working on that and not ignoring it. I hope Bridget's working on that and not ignoring it. And clearly that tone came out in my text message when I went, how are you going with that? And that didn't go so well.
And I was like, I'm feeling really triggered by you asking me about that, because I recognise that I haven't got much there. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now, and it's just one thing after another. And it was basically like my, spill.
I was so glad you did that, because I actually thought... That's the opening for change, though, right? That's the opening of vulnerability, that instead of shying away from those uncomfortable feelings, you are able to use a language that I understand by saying, I'm feeling really triggered by this. And therefore, when I understand that language, I don't need to take that personally. I can go, yeah, I get that, And
that's the thing about us talking about feeling triggered. You're not responsible for me feeling triggered, but I am responsible for showing up to you in honesty about where it's landing for me right now and what I'm sitting with. Because if I'm not being authentic with you, we can't be authentic together in this business, because we're not living what we're preaching, in essence, are we?
No, I totally agree with that. And I think the more congruent and more transparent our relationship is, the more congruent and transparent our business is. And I think, that's that's the entrepreneurial journey,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't mean that along the way we're not hitting our edges, because it kind of feels like we do every month.
Yeah.
Rub against these edges.
Sometimes we slam full force.
Yeah, it's true. And I really, whilst I then got the trigger message and I was like, my whole energy just kind of dropped, because I was working on playlists for our sensuality session. So I was like vibing everything, going, yes, I'm here. And then I got your text message, I'm feeling really triggered, and instantly I went into a shame spiral.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. And totally felt my energy literally just like a wilting, I don't know, tulip or something.
Don't wilt.
Thanks. And I went, oh my God. And I thought, no, just push through, because I had the baby sleeping. So I'm like, I'm going to use this time.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I can't. The energy's gone. So I closed my lid and just sat with those feelings. But I thought what I loved about that was, whilst I had a feeling, again, being able to frame it in the term of vulnerability, showing up honestly, and triggers, was that I know it's my trigger to own. It's not you've made me feel. And I know that that's what you're thinking as well.
Yeah.
So I then just have to adult up and parent myself in my head, going, how Bridget's feeling is not your responsibility. So just take it back to being aware of underlying currents that I wasn't being congruent with, and you clearly picked up on, which in essence is perfect anyway. Because anytime we're trying to gloss over and say, yeah, it's all good, I'm fine, or whatever, or the undercurrent of anger, which is passive-aggressive comments, as if that doesn't land.
Totally. And it's funny, because immediately after this, I got this, what I took as passive-aggressive text message from my brother, which I immediately wanted to react with my own, but don't you see my life is so busy? Kind of comment, and it would really have been from a very reactive place. And so then I had to reparent myself and go, no, hang on, this is just your underlying stuff you're not dealing with. Don't project it out onto him. And I thought that's such a lesson for me with where I was at with you too, because
getting slammed like a double trigger, isn't it?
Well, and it was there for a reason, for me to go, oh, what's this all about? Where have I felt this before? Why am I hitting this kind of edge, which I find that I seem to get to when I have like so much scattering priorities in my life. And so I think that I'm seeking to use this stuff as a maybe not a red flag, but rather an opportunity to kind of behavior moderate myself and kind of get myself clear on where I can grow intentionally, and where I can refine some of my idiosyncrasies, so that I can get more aligned too, because we really need to consider this outside world as feedback, and it's not feedback we have to take on board as right, but it's feedback to help us get to our most authentic self.
And I think that's the point you and I are trying to make here too, is that feedback doesn't need to be you're wrong.
No.
However we take that personally, that we are wrong in some way. It's, okay, I'm hitting an edge here. What is this? Why is this? And likely it's something you've been wanting to own anyway, and now it's come in a painful lesson. Yeah. Which for me too is my so I was saying, then I went into self-reflective mode, and it was great. Had a great conversation with my husband, which I thought for him also, so how much does this even serve that this whole thing has even come up? Yeah. Because he would, rarely be able to offer me the wisdom that I would seek, say, from you. But all of a sudden I have this, and he manages a team of, I don't know how many women, I'm not sure, and up the coast, up the east coast of Australia. And so he's an excellent people manager. And so I was able to say to him, I've just done it this way. But I feel really justified by these things. But I don't know about this, And he was able to swoop in and go, well... And he pretty much said it in that tone. Yeah. And was able to have these fantastic conversations with me about, really, he called me just, he knows, you're very special with your micromanaging of people.
I love that. You're very special.
You're very special. And I appreciated the humour, and I went, yeah, I know. I am. I feel like that's my spectrum disorder. It's like out of control. And I could see how it had gotten out of control, which is actually something I don't want to be. I don't want to be the person. I actually don't want to be the person that's in charge of everybody. Yeah. But there's something in me that goes, well, I have to be. Because if I don't, nothing's going to get done, which is just my childhood. Yeah, yeah. And yet I'm still fighting that in different areas of my life. I've mediated a way to make that work in my family life, and here I am in business trying to empower business, and bang, here it is again.
Did you have to be that person to feel in control in your childhood?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because everything was in chaos.
Yes, exactly. And also, if I didn't do it, it wouldn't happen. Like I was just saying to Bridget just before, it's my birthday, which by the time this come out will be yesterday. And if I don't organise my birthday, my mum's not organising my birthday. Like it's the same thing. You know, if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. So if there's something I really want, I'm going to make sure I fucking do that shit.
Yeah.
Because no one's doing it for me.
It for you. Yeah. I really get that.
And that's what it is. But it's so dysfunctional. And I don't know what the word is, but tears apart relationships. I can see over the years how I've had to grow through that in being a mother, because there's nothing like motherhood to throw you out of control.
Throw you under a bus.
Yeah. And how to do that in relationship, to have a really, you know, long-term, beautiful, intimate relationship. Like as if I'm not going to hit those edges. And I think it's ironic that here I am hitting it in the area of life that I'm seeking to empower. Like there's no accidents in that either. So, and at the same time allows me a deeper connection with my husband, because I'm feeling a bit out of connection with you, which is probably where, you know, that energy has just moved.
Yeah.
It allows him to step up and be this, you know, beautiful, strong, masculine, I'll lead the way for you, that he would rarely have an opportunity to have with me. And at the same time, he gets to tell me some home truths, because I'll listen, because it's in an area of life I'm wanting to grow into.
Yeah, so you're not dismissing it because you actually need
and I'm
that
not defending
right
it.
now.
Yeah, I need it.
Yeah. So fascinating.
Like, how amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, out of this you're shitty, and you could get so lost in that emotional shame spiral.
Totally.
Or trigger. I mean, you know, I'd love you to extrapolate out what happened in your world too, but I could so see
It's so
how
funny
perfect it
that
was.
you were saying this. I'm just thinking, what happened today for me? Oh my God. All day today, I have had internet connection issues. So the whole day I've been trying to work and the internet keeps dropping out. And so I've been like fucking stomping around the house. And my husband, the knight in shining armor, which you actually called him earlier today, had to keep coming in and helping. Like he was on the chat. He was like trying to figure it out. He was doing all this stuff for me. It was, you know, and I thought, wow, how much is this serving my relationship? You know, because he gets to be in his genius, which he just loves to do that kind of thing around the home and for me. And I thought, and then, you know, what is that representing? Where am I out of connection? Because if my internet's not connecting, where am I in disconnection? You know, and what we're talking about here is exactly a manifestation of that. This is like how your life is always talking to you. Never doubt it. It always is.
It's actually kind of profound to the point where you go, oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're reading too much into it. But
No.
the more you look at it, the more you go, this is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I just want to roll back, Bridget, a bit, because I think we've talked about the bigger scale, which we hope you can then look at your own situations and your own lives and see kind of the bigger picture stuff. And the more layers you see, the more kind of almost exciting and more profound I think it gets. But I'd love to just take it back to, I'm triggered by you, but we still have to work together. And you obviously were doing some processing because you went radio silent on me with the text message. So I texted you back and then you went radio silent, which for me is like a killer.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it's a killer. But perfect, right? Because I was looking at it too going, Julie, this forces you to just be
Were you like
in
waiting
the
for me to write
Yeah,
back?
I was waiting, like hanging on the edge of my seat.
No
waiting.
way!
Because if there's something uncomfortable, I need to get it sorted. I can't have chaos, Bridget. Here comes my manicness again.
Okay.
I got to sort that out because it's got to be in its place, not like out of control.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so perfect because it's getting me to completely face my neurosis.
Yeah, and sit more longer
And
in that, and
force
sit longer
me
in
to
that
sit
discomfort.
in, yes, which I would rather just scrabble out of.
Yeah.
Like perfect, but so perfect. But I would love to hear, you know, for you, because that was obviously painful for you. And maybe you were like cursing me behind the scenes. I don't know, like I want to kind of know what that intensity of feeling was, because I was also thinking in my head, I feel so congruent with our relationship that I was thinking I'm just going to turn up at her house and say, just give it to me, just tell me everything that shits you about me. I'll take it. I'm willing to hear that because I'm willing to grow through that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where I was at in my head.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just lay it all out on the table.
I don't feel that for me it was anything big like that. Like,
see, I've read into it.
Yeah.
I've made it bigger than it is.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because we all have those different perspectives, and I could totally see how I needed to be pulled into that place of like showing up, because I have a tendency to have lofty ideas and like big dreams and then not actually chunk them down to get them done. I can kind of get them done sometime, whereas you're calling me to accountability, which is something I'm trying to force myself, like a box I'm trying to push myself into at the moment.
Well, it's an area of life you're trying to empower, really, if you want to look at it that way, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's not a natural skill set, so you're working at empowering.
And I know this, right? So I've done so much fucking, like, all those corporate bloody, strengths finder things and all these Myers-Briggs and blah, blah, blah. And I know they all come out saying, excellent researcher, incredible level of knowledge, probably should figure out how to put it somewhere, because I just like consume, And so I can see how this is forcing me to compartmentalize the way that I work so that I can be more accountable to myself and others, right? So I was probably just more sitting in that and probably trying to use my chunk of work to do work. So I wasn't sitting in like a pain there. I was more like, fuck, yeah, she's calling me out because I need to be called out in this. I could see the story. Like I've had this, a fantastic planner that I've gotten on board with. And it's genius because it's all about like breaking down your goals and having revenue targets and also having space for like the mind body stuff, and so it's perfect. But I can see it sitting on the edge of my table,
in and of itself is funny,
moving around my fucking house.
So it's even been sitting there, and you've been looking at the planner, going, "I need to fill that out."
Yeah.
And along come I with the bigger pain lesson to go slap. Oh, God.
Like it's totally where like, my story of this like last couple of weeks is going, I really should fill out my revenue goals, and I really got to like sit with that and stop the doing and the tactical stuff in my businesses and start fucking strategizing, and start stepping into, I'm worth that, like really sitting in the pain stuff. And so the whole thing that's blown up today for us has been calling us both into this, this is where you're next being called to grow. And it looks different for each of us because it needs to be different for each of us.
It just blows my mind, even just the synchronicity of all of that. Like it almost feels like it's so magic. It can't possibly be real.
It's divinity, right? Crazy.
Man, that is really crazy.
Yeah.
So I wonder what advice you would like to give our listeners who possibly have been triggered by someone, I'm going to say near and dear to you, but it might not be. It might just be a work colleague that you've got to, sit next to or work on a project with. And you want to make it about them. Where do you go from that? They've said something and you've gone row on the inside. Yeah. What do you do?
Well, I think it's that line of questioning that you sort of started with, like, wow, why is that so triggering for me? What's coming up for me right now? Where have I felt this before? Another layer to add to that, which we haven't talked about, is also why do my perceptions of this person need to be equilibrated in any way? So in the instance of having somebody on a pedestal, have I had this person on a pedestal and I need to bring them back down into equanimity in my reality, which you and I oscillate with each other a lot. Yeah. And so I definitely think that this also forms a function of that in our relationship, because no one deserves to be put up on a pedestal and nobody deserves to be put down, in a pit. Everyone is a reflection of us, and everyone has both traits we love and traits we don't like. And the two of those traits, molded together is what love is. It's the balance of the two. And so all of our relationships and all the people we're surrounded with are presenting both of those things for us all the time, for us to learn to, equilibrate. And so if I've had you up on a pedestal, which, I totally do sometimes.
Which also is funny when we're talking about the content of sexuality, sensuality.
Yes.
So particularly if you've had me on a pedestal there, which we're not remotely saying is the case, that, but if you've got that perception and all of a sudden that's the topic we're talking about too, that me pissing you off allows you to bring me back down.
It allows me to not keep you up there, but rather if I'm finding a reason to get pissed off with you, it's actually me loving you more because I'm not putting you up in this, infatuation, unrealistic place in my mind, which is not where you deserve to be. You deserve to be, in equanimity, in wholeness, right?
Yeah.
So I can also see, particularly in relationship with that topic, what played out today is like a perfect mirroring of my perception of you in relationship to your embodied feminine and what I don't feel is a genius that I quite have, like you do. Which is true, I don't, because I have a different genius, which you keep reminding me of.
Yes.
But that is also what I would offer people, is to look at, have I had this person on a pedestal for any reason? Have I been infatuated with them? Have I thought that they have something that I don't, that I really deeply admire about them? And have I now got cause to be pissed off with that person in order to bring me back into balance? Because if you won't do it for yourself, like equilibrate yourself about a person consciously, they will do something to take themselves off the pedestal in your mind.
That's so interesting.
Isn't it? And you can think about that. Think about the people who you've had, like, been running a bit of a story on, that they've got more than you don't, or that they're more empowered or better looking or got better relationships or a better job or more well-behaved kids or whatever story you've got. And look at the times in which you have
gotten pissed at
them. And maybe you needed to get pissed at them in order to, in a roundabout way, love that person more for their authentic self, not this inflated self that you had. And then loving yourself more, right? And loving yourself more, exactly.
Because when you feel more like them, or, well, they're just the same as me.
Yeah. Right? This is the genius of our psyche, always trying to get us back into, balance.
Oh, God, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's assume, you and I work, we work hard on our relationship. That's, I think particularly the more time you spend with someone, no different to an intimate relationship, the more you rub edges and the more work it requires to stay there, because you could exit at any time if it got too painful, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, you and I have worked hard on being present with each other, holding space with each other, and communicating authentically. Plus owning our own stuff rather than saying you make me feel, right? So, we've kind of laid the groundwork for all of that. So, in inverted commas, it was easy for us to have a conversation where you say, I'm feeling triggered, and I go, I get what that means. Shit, what role have I played in that?
Yeah.
And we naturally equilibrate ourselves, so by the time we're together, it's not reactive.
Yeah,
it's almost an intellectual conversation where we can sit in a heart space and potentially shed tears and say, here's where it took me to.
Yeah.
But we're not feeling judgment or blame or potentially shame.
Yeah.
We're able to just be completely, this is what it is, But I think that not everybody has that in any relationship. So I'm wondering what advice you and I would have for people that are triggered, but potentially they don't have the level of that relationship to be able to say with that level of vulnerability and acceptance for that person.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because there's certainly relationships in my life where I wouldn't, and a lot of relationships in my life that I probably wouldn't bring that level of authenticity or honesty, because I also recognise it's possibly not that person's dialogue or willingness to be there either, which might be a projection, but I do recognise that you and I are both really well versed in knowing the these principles about the fact that you don't make me feel anything, I choose that, right? So me calling this out as being triggered is me saying, I'm feeling this, you're not responsible for it, but here's where I'm at. And so I do think it's wise to think about the person that you're thinking of and considering whether they're going to take on board that they're now thinking you're accusing them of doing something to them.
Yes.
In which case you might want to choose your language more carefully, or choose the way in which you communicate. It might not be via text like it was for us. But I think it's really, it comes back to the toolkit that you speak of a lot, which is, the when you do X, I feel like this, I would like you to but I understand it's not your responsibility because these are my feelings. That would probably be a way to talk to somebody else about it. And this is certainly the way that I've begun to talk to my son about certain things, so that he can recognise relationship more deeply and, in a more conscious way. What would you say?
Well, I was sitting with that too, because I kind of had that question in the back of my head today. As at the same time I'm moving through all my own feels, I was on some level in my head going, this is pretty amazing that we have a relationship in which we can show up in this way.
Yeah.
Because I also hold that as precious, because I recognise that that's not, in inverted commas, the norm. So I was also thinking in my head, wow, what do people do that are not here? Because I know that this is also the case with intimate relationships, in many intimate relationships. And I wonder how that works, because I think, you know, I mean, vulnerability paves the way for vulnerability, right? So someone has to kind of start for it to even be a reality. Because if you're waiting for the other person, they're probably waiting for you. Yeah. Which in essence is all us anyway, right? We're just waiting for ourselves, which is kind of funny. So I also think, you know, I would always self-check my emotional state first. Yeah. If I was really in an emotionally triggered space, and I think this is actually probably where the practice of parenthood comes in, because well, I imagine because you're listening to this podcast that you're choosing to get more conscious about your triggers, and when you're feeling emotional reactions to your children and their behaviour, that you're taking time and space to create a holding in the tension of those feelings without needing to instantly, you know, smack, hit, react, you know, whatever, fall into the way that you were parented per se. It's the same thing here when we recognise that there's relationships that hit this sore spot, and all of a sudden our reaction is, I want to come in with, you know, defensiveness and tell you all the reasons why I'm just justified and I'm just as worthy to have those feelings as you. And I'm, you know, I kind of think there's a moment at which you have to self-check and parent your own emotional state and realise that that's not an authentic emotional state, that in a way, I mean, we love emotions and we hold space for emotions and they're messengers, but they're also a lie. Yeah,
and I love that you've said this too, because the reality is if you're doing this inner work, which I recognise I probably do quite a bit unconsciously and have done for a long time, just naturally go, why did I react like that? Oh, that's probably overreacting. Okay, now I can see how that played out. You know? And when you do that, the other person transforms anyway. So what might have been like a red hot thing, if you're processing it, you're processing them on some level too, because of that entanglement that you've got, whether you're with them or not, which is so interesting, isn't it? Because that's almost, you actually have the capacity when you are parenting yourself through that kind of language or reflection, that you're actually transforming what comes out the other side too.
I agree with that. So I think you've got to self-check, be willing to self-check your emotional state, and not perceive that emotions are reality, as this situation is.
The truth.
Yeah, are the truth. That's a better way of saying it. I think you've got to realise I'm feeling triggered, and my responsibility right now is to just calm the farm, to sort the insides out, and then I'll come to a space where I can bring in the head, you know, to start going, what does this mean? What are the, you know, asking all of those quality questions we've already spoken about. And once I've done that with myself, then I would probably come to that person and say, you know, when this happened, I really felt, and I'm wondering, you know, what was going on for you. Or I'm wondering if, you know, you were feeling triggered by me. Or, you know, and here's how I would have liked that to go on. Or I'm wondering if there's something we can work out here. I would have taken it that way, but I would have started with, I really felt like this when this happened. And I realised that I've got some stuff going on with that, which I, you know, am taking responsibility for. Not that I would say it that way, but, you know, say I'm owning that, but I want to move forwards with you. So I think it's a two-way street. Yeah. But you've got to be willing to own, step up and own your no as much as your yes. Yeah, you know, and there's an adult way to do that, and there's a child wounded way to do that, and you can pick. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Beautiful.
We know it's easy to lose yourself in motherhood.
To be tapped out and touched out, to forget who you are and what you're worthy of, to fall short of the mother you thought you should be.
Ouch. Hey.
This is why we created the Loathing to Loving program.
We want you to open up, to show up and transform what you believe is possible for you as a woman and as a mother, because you're both, and we don't want you to give up one in order to be the other.
For $249, you'll spend 5 weeks online with us with lifetime access to 4 modules where we give you the toolkit for understanding what's happening in your world and how to transform it.
You can pay in full, or we have just instigated payment plans, which means you can make 3 simple payments, one of $49 at sign up and 2 $100 payments over 2 months, if that is going to make it easier in your world.
Yes. So come and blossom with us.
Open up, show up and transform.
So I really hope that this has given you some tools and perhaps an opportunity for reflection in your own lives and your own relationships. And
as the rain starts to hit much harder,
really
we're going to try and rev up.
If you'd like to connect with us, it's nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. And suburbansandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
thepleasurenutritionist.com. Thank you so much for listening. We love your conversations outside of, the podcast. So please continue to email us, message us, talk to us through socials. We really totally adore that.
Yes, and remember to nourish the mother, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.